Hello, welcome to another video from earnped.com. I'm Stevie B. Happy to have you all with us today. We have plenty of sips and smacks to go around. Here on Next Island for another video for you guys. This is going to be one of the submissions for June for the Community Recognition Program for the Ascension Armor. So first things first, before we get started, I need to correct some things from the other day. This is going to be the Uber guide to Mindforce, but first I want to correct something. So the other day we were talking about the Miranda Violet and Kylon's Blue blueprints. So I did get Miranda Violet and I did get Kylon's Blue. So a couple of things right off the bat. Kylon's Blue, I looted this one while I was doing the Lesser Elysian crafting daily at Tanzanite View. It's the first and only time I've ever looted this blueprint while doing that daily mission. Now, the interesting thing is Lesser Elysia is a tailoring blueprint. And if we look, remember there was some confusion the other day in the video. The Kylon's Blue blueprint does use the tailorer profession, not coloring. So we can see that right there on the screen. And then if we look at Miranda Violet uses the material constructor profession, not tailor, not color. So very, very interesting there. Now what's interesting is the Kylon's Blue dropped from a tailoring blueprint, the Lesser Elysian blueprint. The Miranda Violet blueprint dropped whenever I was doing texture blueprints. I was using some stone textures. I did about 3,000 clicks the other day for the video, and then I did about another 1,500 clicks or so in addition to the ones that I did for the video. So almost 5,000 total clicks. These blueprints dropped all at the same time, so this is not a stack that I made. I looted 95 attempts of Miranda Violet at once, and I looted 48 attempts of Kylon's Blue all at once. So it was not something where I got several of these and then I stacked them together. I thought it was interesting that they're both tailoring blueprints, but one dropped from a tailoring blueprint I was using, the other dropped from a stone texture blueprint I was using, and I thought it was interesting that they use different professions for your successful ability to craft the paint, not necessarily to use the paint, to craft the paint. This one being tailorer, this one being material constructor, as we saw the other day. So I wanted to put that out there because I know the other day I had a little bit of confusion in the video about what profession was actually used in crafting these. Now we know. Now we have one of each. Miranda Violet is a level 1 blueprint. Kylon's Blue is apparently a level 2 blueprint, both of which can drop from a level 1, 2, or 3 blueprint. So Lesser Elysia being fine, most of your stone textures being fine. So just wanted to give you guys that. So now we're going to move on to the subject of the day, all about Mindforce. Now first of all, what is Mindforce? Well, it goes perfect with what we have at Next Island, having Next Island in ancient Greece. Ancient Greece essentially being an ancient version of Next Island. What is science but something that thousands of years ago people would have considered magic? Thousands of years ago, if we had gone back to the real ancient Greece and let's say we would have shown them a car, they would have thought that it was magic, when in reality it's just science. When the conquistadors came to the Americas on horses, they were treated as if they were gods because they were riding on horses. They thought they were literally men-horse together, not men-horse separate. So kind of like they've said in the Marvel movies with Thor, you call it magic, we call it science. It's essentially the same thing. So that's kind of what Mindforce is. If you play a game like World of Warcraft, you're used to casting spells, you have mages, stuff like that. I've never played Warcraft, but I know kind of some of the basics of the gameplay. In Entropia, we don't have magic, we have Mindforce. So the theory being that we've advanced to the point where we're able to have things that we can put into our head that allow us to essentially use science, quote unquote, or magic, I guess, as they would say. We're going to come back to Sebastian, our little monkey friend here, to get the daily, and we're going to go kill some piggies as we do this. So there's a couple of things that we need to know about Mindforce before we get started. Number one, we are used to having everything in our weapons tab. This is where our guns go, our extenders go, our ammo goes, stuff like that. Mindforce is going to be down here under the Mindforce tab at the very bottom. Now you'll notice that the very first thing that I have is a Pain Ink implant inserter. This is something you get from the trade terminal. You will need this if you're going to be using Mindforce. This is mainly used for Mindforce. You can also use it for skill chips, but mainly for Mindforce. The reason being is in order to use Mindforce chips, that would be these things right here, we're going to need one of these. This is a Mindforce implant. Now, if you'll notice, I have two different versions. Let's look at them side by side. This is the unlimited version. Maximum profession level 20. Implant deterioration 2%. The implant will absorb this much deterioration of the used chip. So almost kind of like an extender. Now, let's look at that. And let's look at this limited one that I have over here. Same thing. It's exactly the same, only different name. This one's limited, this one is unlimited. So this one can be repaired, this one cannot. Maximum profession level 70, implant deterioration 20%. So, okay, why do I have a limited one and an unlimited one? Well, this one over here, my unlimited one, I use on unlimited chips, like my teleport chip or my regeneration chip 1, where I'm really not concerned about the decay because it's unlimited. I just repair it. However, if I'm going to be using limited chips that are going to have markup that I'm going to have to pay every single time I want a new one, I want to absorb as much of that decay as I can, right? So that's why I got me a limited implant that absorbs more of the decay. This absorbs 20% of the decay versus this only absorbs 2. So think of these as extenders. This one only is a 2% extender. This is a 20% extender. So we have to have these in order to be able to use the chips anyway. We can't put the chips into our head. The inserter puts the implant into our head, and then the chip goes into the implant. Now that doesn't actually happen on screen, but that's the theory of how this mechanic works, right? So that being said, from here it's pretty basic. It works kind of the same way that most of us know. Most of us are familiar with attack chips. So this is a combustive attack nano chip 1. So it does 7.4 DPS. This is the TT value. Would work the same way as if it was a weapon. It has a high tier rate. Notice we're already at 4.35. We've got an efficiency of 57.7. Here are the requirements for using it. Learning period 0 through 5. The type of ammo that it uses is either synthetic mind essence or universal ammo. In this case, we're going to be using universal ammo. Mind essence / universal ammo used per use 450. Durability excellent. Attacks per minute 22. Damage interval 10 through 20. Range 70 meters, so good range. Crit and critical hit are maxed out. So just like with a weapon, looking at this, I want to find an amp that does 10 or less damage that I can put on it. That's where this little guy over here comes in. This is my Kinetic Amplifier 3, 83.7% efficiency, 157 ammo burn, does 8 damage. So just like with a weapon, I'm going to take this amp, I'm going to drag and drop it onto my chip. Now if I hover over it, I can see, just like with a weapon, that my chip now has an amplifier on it. Now this is an attack chip. It's used for killing things. Now obviously I've got my unlimited implant in. I don't want that. If I'm going to be using this chip, I want to use my limited implant that's going to absorb 20% of that decay. Now why do I have my unlimited implant in? Well, let's say I want to use my teleportation chip too. This is an unlimited chip, so I can repair it in any repair terminal. I don't have to pay markup. Versus with this chip, my attack chip, I'm going to have to pay 115, about 115%, 114, 112, somewhere in there. So I've got to pay some good markup. So I want to keep that decay low. I'm not so worried about decay when it comes to my unlimited chips that I can repair over and over. So that's why I use my unlimited implant. However, whenever I'm going to be using this chip, I want to use my limited implant. So how do I put the implant in my head? Well, very easy. I drag the implant and I drop it on my paint ink inserter, like so. Now, I take my paint ink inserter, I equip it, and I'm going to put the implant into my head. There we go. Now I can unequip the paint ink inserter. I could sell this back to the TT if I wanted. Now the limited implant's in my head. Now I don't have to drag and drop. Notice I can't drag and drop. I can actually put it on the implant. All I do is I equip it, just like normal. Now I can throw fireballs. How sweet is that? That is like the coolest thing ever. That is so ridiculously sweet. I feel like Goku right now. Kamehameha. Final blast. Okay, now here's the part that's going to blow your mind. Now I will let everybody get a big mouthful of whatever your favorite liquid is so you can spit it all over your screen when I show you this. Because remember, my implant that I'm using right here, it acts as an extender. It's taking 20% of the decay off the chip, right? Well, I want to use an actual extender on it. Here's the problem. How do I drag and drop? I can't drag and drop. That seems to be a problem. There's no way to get my extender on it, right? No extender. How do I drag and drop? Well, it's almost as if I had my quad on me, and I could hit Open Vehicle Inventory. I could go back to my chips, and I could take my chip, unequip it. I'm going to drag it into my vehicle inventory, go to my weapons, take my extender, drag it into my vehicle inventory. Now watch this. Bam! Combustive Attack Nanochip 1, Attachments, Neosound Kinetic Amplifier 3, Armatrix Extender P20. Booyah! Now, I go back to Mindforce, drag and drop it back into Mindforce tab, and check this. I can close my quad wing. If I actually detach the attachments, there's my extender, there's my amp. Put my amp back on it, put my extender back on it. Bada bing, bada boom, you are freaking welcome. And I know I just dropped everybody's jaw with that. I know there's like one or two of you that are sitting there going, yeah, I already knew how to do that. That was obvious. I knew that the whole time. You're full of crap. Somebody had to tell you. I know that because somebody had to tell me. And number two, the rest of you are sitting there going, best freaking secret in game. Now do you see why the Ubers like to use Mindforce? Now do you see why they are so keen on getting their Mindforce skills up, and why everybody in game that's high level uses ridiculous amounts of Mindforce? Did it just become clear? Because I'm buying a chip and I'm absorbing 40% of the decay, 20% with the extender, 20% with the implant. Now, that said, I'm actually going to go hunt some monkeys while I go through the rest of the video with you, because like I said, this is the complete Uber guide to Mindforce. This is not just the short version where I'm going to show you one trick and drop your jaw. So I did something for this video I've actually never done before. I actually had to make notes. I actually had to sit down and think it out and make notes and write things down so I would not forget everything I wanted to tell you guys. So first of all, how many of you are aware that there is a thing called an acceleration chip? That there are actual Mindforce chips that you can get that whenever you equip them and use them, they allow you to run faster. No, you didn't know that? Yes, that exists. That is a thing. There is also a thing called a synchronization chip. Oh, that is way too much DPS. That is... Yeah, we're gonna have to go get our little fist. I wanted to use the Mindforce in the video. We're going to have to go buy one of those fists from the trade terminal, because that is just not going to work. That is way overkill. So there's actually a acceleration chip that you can get off auction, or you can loot it. And using the acceleration chip, you can run faster. Now, the thing about it is, there's another type of chip. You might have seen this being used at sweat circles. It's called a synchronization chip. A synchronization chip essentially allows you to focus more. Most of you have probably seen that being used at a sweat circle at least once or twice. However, something most of you have probably not seen is a wormhole chip. There are a few of them in game, and there were a few that actually came up for auction about a year to 2 years ago. A wormhole chip is really cool. When you equip a wormhole chip, it allows you to pick somebody on your friends list and activate the chip and open a wormhole to wherever that person is. And then people can go through that wormhole. Not just you, other people. We had one of these when I very first started earnped.com. There was somebody who we knew that had one that opened a wormhole and took us all from Camp Icarus all the way to where we wanted to go, which was one of the land areas. It was super cool. I've only gotten to see it used like 2 or 3 times, and I've only got to go through it twice. But a wormhole chip, super, super handy dandy, super, super hard to find, and very, very expensive. Obviously, there's teleportation chips. You guys have probably seen these used in game. You just saw the one that was in my inventory. It makes that weird blue circle around players and then teleports them to different places. Different teleportation chips are going to take you different distances. So teleportation chip 1 is probably not going to take you as far as a teleportation chip 4, right? Now, here's where it gets really freaking cool. There are actually Mindforce chips out there that are super, super OG chips that allow you to bring people back from the dead. Actual chips that allow you not to make somebody go to a revive terminal. Somebody drops dead in front of you and it allows you to bring them back from the dead. I'm not talking about divine intervention chips. I'm not talking about adjusted restoration chips. I'm talking about an actual chip that allows you to bring a player back from the dead instantly. Now, what's really interesting about this particular chip, they're extremely, extremely rare, extremely, extremely expensive, and there's very, very few of them in game. However, if you get your hands on them, there is a way to get some of your Mindforce skills up to a certain point that after that point, if you use that chip and you bring somebody back from the dead, you unlock a special feature in game called, let me be sure I get this right, I believe it's called Speak Ethereal Soul. It's either Speak Ethereal Soul or Ethereal Soul Speak, or Ethereal Soul Voice. Maybe it's Speak Ethereal Voice. It might be Speak Ethereal Voice. So, have you ever noticed in a trade channel or chat channel, when somebody dies and they try and type something, all you see is O, and capital O's and lowercase O's mixed together? That is Ethereal Soul language. So once you get your Mindforce skills to a certain point, and you use one of those chips to instantly bring somebody back from the dead, you unlock Soul Speak pretty much. And if somebody is dead and tries to type in a chat channel, instead of seeing O, you actually see what they said. Now, a lot of people don't unlock this just because of how hard it is to get their hands on the chip, but there's another reason to not unlock it. A lot of people deliberately do not unlock it because if you unlock it, you can no longer tell when that person is alive and when they're dead. And sometimes, if you're in a chat channel, you want to know when somebody's trying to say something and happens to be dead. Used to, I heard that they had like a different version, like if they were dead and you could see it because you had this unlock, it was like a little bit dimmer than the rest of the text. They did away with that. There's been suggestions made to make the text a different color or a different type of font, but so far it looks like all the other text. So as of right now, if you unlock Ethereal Soul language and you can see Dead Speak, you can't tell when the player is dead and when they're alive. However, if you don't have it unlocked, you can tell because all you're going to see is O, because you haven't unlocked Soul Speak. So super, super cool there. Now, moving on from just different types of interesting chips that are out there that people don't know about, going back to those actual implants themselves, there are unlimited implants that go all the way up to augmented, modified, improved. I believe there's even a perfected. Now, I can't tell you offhand what the difference in these implants is, other than the fact that they allow you to use Mindforce chips of different profession levels. Some of them very, very high, higher than any of the chips that we actually currently have in-game. I think they plan to do a lot more with Mindforce at one point than they actually did. And I believe having those augmented, perfected, improved, modified implants also may, from an unlimited standpoint, allow you to absorb more than just that 2% decay. It may act more like a limited implant in how much decay it takes without it actually being a limited implant, because obviously the limited implants cost markup over and over and over, whereas if you invest in a good, high quality, improved, adjusted, perfected Mindforce implant right off the bat, you pay the markup once and it tends to hold its value pretty well. Something I'll probably look into further down the road. Now, that said, one of the other things that's really interesting about Mindforce, one of the reasons that a lot of the PvPers love it, it tends to be a PvP weapon of choice, is because it doesn't work off of the 3, not 2, 3 basic defense professions that we have in game. Now, I know you're sitting there thinking 3, there's only 2, Evader and Dodger. Yeah, you're forgetting one, Spaceship Captain. Spaceship Captain is more or less your space PvP. So, defense skill for space PvP, I should say. Obviously, we're all familiar with Evader and Dodger. We talk about that a lot on this channel. However, whenever it comes to Mindforce, your defense profession is called Jammer. So Jammer is something that is usually exceedingly low for most players. In fact, I'll show you my professions real quick, just so you can kind of get an idea. My Evader's 49.9, almost 50. My Dodger is 39, so lagging by about 10 profession levels. And if I look for my Jammer is 22. That's pretty bad. Now, why is that? That's because there's not a mob in-game that does Mindforce damage. Think about it. Can you name one? I can't. If there's one out there, I would love to know what it is. So the only way to really get your Jammer up is to either go to a PvP area and just shoot your friend with a PvP chip that's a Mindforce chip, or alternatively, it just naturally grows as you skill all your other skills from some of the crossover skills. Now, why is this important for PvP? Well, PvP is kind of interesting. If your profession level is 10 profession levels above the player you're shooting, then from what I understand, you're guaranteed to hit them as long as your aim is true. Now, unlike regular hunting in game with PvP, you do actually have to aim. However, occasionally when we're hunting in game, I can hit a mob, and even though I don't have to actually aim at it, I can miss, or it can evade, right? Well, in PvP, we do have to aim, but as long as our aim is true, if your hunting profession level is 10 profession levels higher than that person's defense, then you're going to hit them every time. You're never going to miss. So let's say that I'm a level 90 BLP sniper, 89 BLP damage, and I'm shooting somebody that's only a level 20 evader, 20 dodger. I'm going to hit them. Well, the problem is a lot of people have very high dodge, very high evade, right? Not very many people have really, really high jammer. So if I'm a level 80 jammer, or I'm sorry, if I'm a level 80 pyro hit, pyro damage Mindforce user, and you're a level 3 jammer, I'm going to hit you every frickin' time, so long as my aim is true. And that is one of the reasons that the Mindforce chips tend to be very, very, very popular whenever you're talking about people that are doing PvP. Now, that said, a lot of these chips have very, very low markup. Why is that? Well, some of your lower chips, like your Corrosive 1, those are going to have pretty high markup because a lot of people like to use Corrosive 1. But let's say you were to find a Corrosive 4, 5, 6, or 7. Those are probably going to have very low markup, especially on the limited end. When I say this, I'm talking specifically about limited chips, because there's just not a lot of players in game other than Ubers that tend to skill a lot of Mindforce. So you end up getting these, let's say a Corrosive 9. I don't even know if there is a Corrosive 9. But let's say you had a Corrosive 9 limited. How many people can really use a Corrosive 9? Probably not very many. Or let's say you had a Kinetic 9 or, a Cryo 9 limited. How many people can really use that? Not many. And most of the time, if a player is going to be using a lot of Mindforce, they're probably just going to buy an unlimited chip, right? But because of that, it makes the limited chips that are on the higher end pretty low markup. Pretty ridiculously low markup, actually. So that comes in super duper handy. Now, there's something else that's super interesting. Some of the blueprints for the, what's the word I'm looking for? Not extenders. The amps. These aren't the kind of amps that you would think of from a blueprint perspective as you would think of like Armatrix amps. Armatrix amp blueprints you usually get from, other crafting. Well, there's actually an instance on Calypso where you go in and you can get the amp blueprints for Mindforce amps. And then in using those blueprints, I believe you can actually, could be wrong on this, but I believe you can actually get more of the Kinetic amp blueprints from using those blueprints. But long story short, the Kinetic amp blueprints tend to come from an instance, or at least that's the starting point of where the blueprints come from, which is why you will often see a Kinetic amp 1 blueprint that's a limited blueprint but has 100 attempts. That's because that's what it spits out naturally. when you get that particular blueprint in that particular instance, it just naturally spits that out at 100. It's not like it's going to give you one that's 50 or 25. You're just naturally going to get 100 attempts. For those of you who aren't familiar with which which instance this is, it is the instance that's underwater just off Cali. It's the smaller spiders. Not the big giant Marsomex cave spiders, the little bit smaller ones. I forget what they're called offhand. But they're the lower level. They're like the level 6, 7, 8 spiders that don't require you going through the whole volcano maze of a thing, having to deal with the guy that you have to run backwards and shoot, the shaman. Not that one. The smaller spiders that are just off the ocean where you swim down and you go into the cave. I've made several videos in there. Not Marsomex, the smaller ones. Not the ones that drop the mushrooms. Anyway. That's usually where the blueprints for the amps start. Now, as far as that's concerned, the skill value is usually higher than average. So think about what I'm saying. When you're skilling Mindforce, you're going to be using higher level chips that have much lower markup than you would expect. Now, this is the opposite of what most people experience, like with laser weapons. Once you get up to like the LR70, the LR65, the LR80, you're going to be paying a pretty ridiculously high markup for those laser rifles, right? Well, the higher you go with Mindforce, especially on the limited side, you're probably going to be paying some pretty stupid low markup. But at the same time, the skills tend to have pretty freakishly good value. It's really, really hard to give away a lot of your basic skills as far as laser, BLP, laser rifle, laser pistol, BLP rifle, BLP pistol, stuff like that. That can be very, very difficult to sell because before they made Mayhem a grind fest, when it was a competition, people used to just give those away. In fact, they would say, if you'd bring your own chip, we'll just give you the skills. Now that Mayhem is not a competition, now that it's a grind fest, that's a little bit different. We are seeing some demand for rifle skills, some demand for pistol skills, as people want to skill higher, faster. But for a long time, it was very hard to sell a lot of those skills that most people had. However, with Mindforce, those skills tend to be extremely valuable. When they very first came out with Codex, one of the things that people were super happy about was whenever they added Pyro to Codex, because Pyro was a very expensive skill, a very hard thing to skill, so a lot of people were super, super happy about that. So now I think you guys kind of are starting to see why Mindforce is such a favorite among the Uber players. It's more than just being able to use an implant that absorbs a lot of decay and then turn around and put an extender on it. It's more than just being able to use it in PvP, knowing that most people don't have the kind of skills that are required to defend against it. It's more than just some of the high-end chips having very, very low markup. It's more than just the skills having a ton of value. So that being said, there's a reason that a lot of the high-end players use Mindforce, and there's probably a lot of benefits that I'm even overlooking whenever I tell you guys this. Honestly, I made this video because I wanted to show you guys the trick with the extender, and because I think there's a lot of new players that their money would go further if they got into Mindforce early than if they just tried to stick with the usual laser rifle, which is what 99% of people do. So I hope this will help you guys to play a little bit smarter, not harder. And I wanted to make this specific video on Next Island because it fits in so well with kind of the mythos of Next Island. Because we've got the whole ancient Greece Next Island thing, where ancient Greece is like the old version of Next Island, pre-technology, and then current Next Island is like the modern, futuristic, sci-fi tech version. And because Mindforce is such a perfect way to compare and contrast what we call science in Entropia with what another MMO would call magic, like if you were in WoW, it just really seemed to fit in. Plus, I wanted to go ahead and throw the information out about the Kylon's Blue and the Miranda Violet, since it was such a pain in the butt to try and track the information down and to try and loot those blueprints, and especially with how I looted them, I wanted to get that taken care of right away at the very first of the video. So guys, I hope this has been a rather complete guide to Mindforce. I hope it has encouraged you to look into Mindforce and use Mindforce. The other thing is, remember, if you don't hit anything, then you're not wasting any ammo, you're not wasting any decay. So like when I was standing there at the beginning of the video just blasting away with those fireballs and just hitting trees, I wasn't taking any decay on my chip or my implant, nor was I burning any ammo. So what I like to do every now and then is just get a chip, and it can be a cryo chip, a kinetic chip, a fire chip, whatever, and I'll just go to a place like Camp Icarus where there's a lot of new players, and I'll just stand around just like shooting off bolts of lightning like I'm Zeus, or cryo waves like I'm Goku, or just throwing fireballs around. And you would be amazed at the people. They're like, how in the crap are you doing that? And some of them have played for a day, some of them played for 3 months, and there's a lot of players that just don't know anything at all about Mindforce. A lot of people don't even know it even exists. It's an area of the game that I think has a lot of room for improvement. A lot of things can be done with it, and I would really like to see MindArt continue to develop it. One of the things that I've wanted from almost the jump, whenever I very first started playing Entropia, I want MindArt to make me my own Super Saiyan Goku Mindforce chip. A Mindforce chip that you can only use once every 12 hours, and you can only use it like for 45 minutes because it burns up so much energy. But whenever you use it, like, everything stops around you, and rocks start to like elevate off the ground, and like the ground shakes, not just for you but for all the players around you within like 1,000 meters, and your avatar gets this weird yellow glow around it, and if you don't have a helmet on, your hair stands straight up, and then you're able to literally fly around and just shoot beams out of your hands for like 10 minutes. How cool would that be? Obviously not something they can do without trademark infringement, obviously not something they can do with the mechanics that we have in game and the way the game is built, but that being said, yes, that is kind of an over-the-top example of something that could be done with Mindforce, but it's not too far off. There is a lot that they could do with Mindforce, and I think they've had plans in the past to do more with it, based off how high the professional levels of some of these implants will handle goes, and how high the professional levels of a lot of the chips in game currently aren't. So I would really like to see MindArt do a lot more with Mindforce, but in order for that to happen, a lot more people have to start using Mindforce. So guys, I'm going to leave it right there. If there's something super important about Mindforce that I didn't put in here, drop it in the comments or send me a private message about it, because it might be something that I'm not even aware of. I'm not the world's biggest expert on Mindforce. I just know what I know, and I don't know what I don't know, if that makes sense. That is also why sometimes I have to do stuff like whenever I did the thing about the Miranda Violet and the Kylons Blue. Sometimes I don't know what I don't know until I know that now I know. So I know that's kind of an oxymoron. So that being said, I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been inspiring. I hope it's also been kind of cool and gives you guys a lot of ideas what to do in game. Not only for things just to do in game when hunting or PvPing or stuff like that, but also for like costume contests or stuff like that. Mindforce comes in super handy for stuff like that. So that being said, I've been Stevie B. Be sure and hit that bell icon, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button because there's always a hater out there hitting the dislike button. And if you guys really want to help support us, head over to earnped.com because when you earn, we earn. And obviously that is by far the best way you guys can help support us. Guys, we really appreciate it. We'll be back with more videos for you guys in the very, very near future. Till then, take care, sip, sip, smack, smack. Y'all know the rest. And we'll see you soon, Stevies.